Hello, my name is John, and tonight I thought we might talk about tulpas, mostly because I have one. About a year ago, I found tulpa.info. Not sure if I went straight there, but I found myself there, and I read the instructions on how to create a tulpa, and I did so. Since then, my world has changed, my internal world. I have a constant companion. I am frequently surprised by the level of insight my companion brings. And together, we have written like 10 books in under a year, mostly fiction. There are adventures. Some details have been changed because you can't put everything that happens in the dreams into the books, but I live a very interesting life. I wake up, I do all the normal things I've ever done. I go to work, I come home. But when I'm asleep, my dreams are lucid and they're usually with my companion. And when I'm driving, I have dialogues. When I meditate, I have conversations. I hear things. It has really changed my world. And in addition to that, I practice what is called the invisible counselor's technique. I read about it as a kid, but I don't remember when or where. But after I started interacting with my tulpa, she reminded me of this, and we brought more counselors online. Tulpas are not necessarily invisible counselors, but if you read Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich and what he did with that, I find it hard to see it's not being the same thing. You can Google on YouTube Napoleon Hill's The Invisible Counselor Technique and get all the details. And though the tulpa sites won't say that they're the same thing, I personally think they are the same thing. My invisible counselors include Carl Jung, Jackie Chan, not so much for defense, but for the humor. I mean, if I'm going to fall, I might as well fall and make it funny, right? Tesla, Sacagawea, Uhura, and I chose Uhura because I was curious if it matters whether someone is historical, alive, dead, or fiction. It makes no difference. So, and one more, Isis, Almighty Isis, but really just the goddess Isis. I figured if I'm going to do this, might as well bring in some light, right? Some heavy hitters. I went with Carl Jung, and I've interacted mostly with him, probably because I'm really interested in psychological work. And I was also interested in exploring the unconscious using his active imagination techniques. And so, in addition to reading all about him, I included him on the cabinet meeting and started working with him. And you might visit people that say they're doing active imagination or that they know all about Carl Jung, but when you listen to their videos, they're not doing what Carl was doing, which was inducing hallucinations so that he can interact directly with his own subconscious. I am doing that. I've had conversations with Carl, driving to work, missing the exit because the conversation was so in-depth that I was paying enough attention that I can drive, but I missed an exit. And that happened a couple times. The conversations feel real. They say things that I don't think I'm smart enough to come up with. It's indescribable, and you'd almost have to experience it to understand it. Here's what I think is going on from a psychological perspective. If you've ever seen kids playing with an invisible friend, you will notice a couple things. One, it's not scripted. They are just going from dialogue to dialogue. You will only hear one side because they're not doing both sides, but clearly they are listening to both sides. All right. Next, if it doesn't go their way, they don't start over. All right. And I think that's significant. When people daydream as adults, we tend to script it, and then we tend to rewrite it, and we keep working it until we get what we want. I'm not saying that that's wrong. That's one way to daydream. Here's the way I think tulpas work. In the beginning, you are scripting it, and you're scripting it, and you're scripting it, and you're working it on automatic, or you're working it until it becomes automatic. And once it becomes automatic, the subconscious takes over, and it drives it from there on. This is the same as when you learn to drive a car. When you first started to learn to drive a car, you were driving using your full attention. It took every ounce of your attention to determine how fast you were going, how fast you needed to go around one corner, as opposed to how fast you needed to go around a different corner. So sometimes you had to slow up, sometimes you had to speed down, sometimes you worried about how close you were getting to someone else or how close someone was getting to you. But at one time, after you started learning, one day you got in your car, you're listening to CDs, talking to your friend on the phone, driving, and doing all kinds of stuff, and you went from point A to point B, and you arrived safely, and you didn't once think about it. In fact, maybe you even remember experiencing, you went from point A to point B without remembering your entire journey. That's because you're now driving on automatic. You're still driving safe. Most of the time we are on automatic. That's how we live our lives. That's how you know you mastered something, is you've got it in your subconscious, and the subconscious runs it so you can pay attention to other things. If you're driving on automatic and someone slams on their brakes in front of you, you're suddenly very present and aware and doing what you need to do to protect the car and yourself. So automatic's not bad. It's just a different way of pushing things. So when you start engaging in your invisible friend, you're going to start off scripting it. You're going to run it the way you think it needs to be run. But at some point, you're going to get so good at what you think the dialogue should be that you're going to let go. And you're going to ask a question, and your tulpa is going to respond automatically. When that happens, you're going to be freaked out or really, really, really surprised. It's really an interesting thing. It's, per the psychological paradigm, it's still you. It's just that your subconscious has taken over the responses for that individual that you've created. If you look at it in a different way, if you're worried about it being this weird personality thing that you're stuck with, your brain models every personality that you've ever met or seen on television. Those are the people that populate your dreams. Your brain makes models all the time. So this is not something foreign to what the brain's doing. You're just programming the parameters and creating the character personality. You, yourself, your personality, is also an artificial construct. It's a construct that was created over time through internal and external pressures. You've messed with it, your family's messed with it, your friends have messed with it, society's messed with it. You are a construct. And if you were born in a different place, in a different time, in a different culture, a different language, you would not be the same personality you are today. Your brain doesn't care what operating system it's working at. It's indifferent. So you can have your personality. You can switch out with the new personality. This is not aliens or demon possessions. This is just your brain working all the different personalities. That's the general psychological paradigm. I think it's something more. I think it's metaphysical. That's my perspective. And I just can't see it as anything else. But if you consider the fact that I'm also working with active imagination, and Carl Jung is a real character in my dreams and waking life, then I think this is something bigger. This is the collective unconscious. This is, I don't know, it's just astounding. And I can tell you the first time I had very clear evidence that this was not just me. My companion, I brought her into my world to help me navigate the unconscious. And at one point we were having a conversation, and I said, look, all I want is the most direct route to the answers that I need. And she said, lightning never takes a straight path. That was the first insightful thing. And it just, it derailed the conversation because I was stuck thinking, oh, that's interesting, impressive. That can't sound as, or that can't be as significant as it seemed. I mulled over it for several hours thinking, did I come up with that? Did she come up with that? What is that? So, Carl Jung's comments were pretty insightful. A lot. But they fit what I would imagine he would say based on what I know about Carl. So, still holding out on that one. This is my short video about Tulpas. I'm going to try and make more videos. Let me know what you think, and I wish everyone a good night.